I want to call to order the meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission for May 12th, 2025. We'll ask everyone please stand at this time for our prayer and pledge of allegiance. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for the day you've given us, for the opportunity we've had to come together and to work for the issues of Rutherford County. We're so thankful for all the many blessings we have, and may we always remember that those blessings come from you. We ask that you guide us, that you protect us, and watch over us all. We offer this prayer in your Son's holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll and determination of quorum?
Jim Averwater. Jeff Phillips. Present. Mike Cush.
Present.
Lee Bogle. Here. Charlotte P. Here. Trey Gooch.
Here.
Jim Thompson. Here. Michael Shirley.
Here.
Jason Beavers. Hettis Reed.
Here.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. We'll now have the approval of our minutes for April 14th, 2025, and I'll ask that our Vice Chairman do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our April 14th meeting minutes are in good order, therefore I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second has been given, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes have been approved. Any public comments have come in?
No, sir.
Okay. Move into item 6, items withdrawn or deferred.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have one item that has been removed from the agenda tonight. That's item 4, Joshua Hine. That's REZ 25-010. It's located at 9180 Horton Highway. They are asking for a planned development. However, after discussions with the applicant's team today, as early as today, the applicant has decided as of about lunchtime today to remove that from the agenda. So if anybody's here for that, we will not be considering it. But with that, we'll be happy to answer any other questions you may have on that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Move into item 7 with our new business and item A, rezoning and zoning of ordinances amendment request. All rezoning regulation amendments requests will be considered at the June 12th, 2025 Board of Commissioners meeting unless deferred or withdrawn by the Planning Commission or applicants. Number 1 is Joe Swanson Jr. for Swanson Development, REZ 25008. Location is Elam Road. Commissioner is Alan McAdoo from District 18. Size of the site is approximately 9.8 acres. Tax map 126. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is employment and activity center. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good evening, everybody. The applicant proposes, as you stated, to zone this property from residential medium density, or RM, to employee and activity center, or EAC. There is a concept plan that has been included with your agenda packets that you'll find on your iPads. According to the application, the front building is anticipated for flex space, which can be a wide range of uses, ranging from trades, office, to a dance studio. The rear buildings, are anticipated to be more warehouse in nature. As I stated, there is a concept plan with your agenda. It does show 3 buildings, approximate building area of just a little over 70,000 square feet. Of course, this is not a planned development, so they're not locked into it, the design that you're seeing here, but that at least gives you an idea of what they are proposing. During their pre-application meeting, the applicant's representative did ask about the EAC district and some other zoning districts. This is a district that's typically reserved for employment and activity center areas in our comprehensive plan, but there's nothing in the ordinance that says that they can't use it in other areas. You'll remember that we've actually considered some other EAC zoning a little bit across the street, but a little to the south of this property on Elam Road, as well as some property on the other side of the I-24 Joby Jackson interchange. This concept plan does show one access point, appears to line up pretty closely with one of the access drives to the church across Elam Road. They have not performed a traffic study at this point. However, due to the more speculative nature of this, we can require one should we feel one is necessary. Of course, they would have to submit an engineered site plan that would have to demonstrate adherence to all of our parking and access requirements, as well as our landscape buffering. You'll see there's some discussion on that. They would be required, depending on the use in the EAC. If it's an industrial type use, we'd be looking at type 3 buffers. If it's a type 2 buffer, it'd be for commercial, more commercial type uses. And of course, they would have to adhere to our performance standards as well. The applicant is present, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Commissioners, any questions or comments for the staff at this time? If not, we'll ask that the applicant come forward. I believe it's Mr. Matt Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Matt Taylor of SEC, located at 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard here in Murfreesboro, representing the Swanson family. I've got several members of Swanson Development in the back as well. Doug did a pretty good job describing the project. It is speculative. This is our best guess as how we will develop the property. We're thinking more traditional flex space in the front, and then the buildings in the back. We anticipate those to still be very similar users as to what would go in the front building, except for as they grow, this gives them a place to grow their business onto our site here internally. Some of that is going on out on Joe B. Jackson at Swanson's Parkway Place. We've got an application before City of Murfreesboro right now where somebody has outgrown space very similar to what's in the front on this plan, and then moving into something that's more akin to what's in the back. So we think this is very, very similar to that project over there. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioner Shirley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, in your planning, I know this is speculative in nature. I think this is the appropriate spot for this type of development. I am extremely concerned about adding more traffic to both ends of Elam Road for this area. Have you discussed with the City of Murfreesboro their plan to extend logistics? I think it's logistics.
I think it's Distribution
Drive, yes. Can you give us any kind of update on extending that? I know there's a red light at Elam Farm, which is fantastic. That would help solve a lot of problems out here.
Yes, sir. Doug, do you have the county, or Mike, have the county zoning plan right there?
Yeah, hold on a
If
second.
you don't have it up, then the kind of the square property that they had their hand on right there, that is in the county. It's on EAC as well. And any project that we have discussed on there, the expectation is that it would access Distribution Drive, and the city's expectation is that Distribution Drive would get extended out to Elam Road. And so I think it's going to be a development-led project, which is going to depend on the project across the street. But that has been every conversation that we have had with the city as well as the county. And I think that is a much better route. I do agree with you.
Didn't the commission, this is before my time, but I remember there was like an equipment store, or a trailer storage yard or something that had been proposed for that square?
We have looked at several. We've looked at self-storage. We've looked at larger distribution warehouse. And we've also looked at something more like vehicular storage, like you mentioned. We've looked at several different uses there. Some of those were associated with FedEx, and then FedEx started to pull back a little bit because of some of their earning reports. And so most recently, the items that we have looked at have not been associated with FedEx, but the roadway extension has still been part of those conversations.
Thank you.
Others?
Well, I wanted to ask a question, if I may. In my research for these maps, I did come up with a disturbing find. I see on this map the Halliburton Cemetery, which this is the subject property here. And I did discuss this with our county archivist, Dr. John Lodell, and he is not sure about this cemetery. There is a cemetery marker farther to the south, but he has not been granted access to this southern few parcels here. But when you look at this property and you look at topographic information. It might just take a second just to pull up if the gremlins don't get me. There we go. So you can see the outline of the cemetery. You have a berm on the eastern, western, and northern side with a mound in the middle, and that's concerning to me. I don't know what that is. If you go back in time and look at old aerial imagery, it was cleared. I'm not sure what the purpose was. So that's another concern of mine. And then the third concern is we don't have a land disturbance permit for this property, but this property has already been cleared. And if I can get these maps to work. So this is the subject property. It's been cleared. And like I said, we don't have a land disturbance for it. So no erosion control, no investigation if there is a cemetery there. So that's some of my concerns.
Sure. So I can speak to, obviously with the possibility of being a cemetery, we would work with the county and any archaeologists before we did any sort of site work to determine the limits of that. As you said, Mike, those maps are, they're not always very accurate and can be way off.
Right.
And so we absolutely will work before we do any sort of site disturbance. And as far as the site disturbance itself, my client has not owned the property very long, so I don't think any of that disturbance was done by them. I think that was maybe the previous owner. I don't know who that was or what that was associated with, Mike. But we can work with you to, if we need to get some stabilization or something there. My clients don't mind that at all, but I don't think that was associated with them. I think they've inherited that.
Mike, is the mound gone now? Is that
The map.
the mound?
The mound?
in the middle?
I don't know. It doesn't look like it's there anymore. Sorry. Let me minimize this. Like I said, this was 2024 ortho. Looks like they started to clear it in 24. And you look at the pictometry, which is the bird's eye view, and it's got a date of January, March 2025. So really recent stuff, but it's continued to be cleared back in this area, which, like I'm saying, I hope that's wrong. I hope there was something else there, but I don't know.
Could you use the mic?
Matt, what I think I heard you say is the new property owners would be taking care of any archaeological.
Yes, sir. Last thing they want to do is end up on the news for the wrong reason.
Anything else? All right, we'll move then into our public comment period. And this is for those who may have come tonight to make an opinion, either for or against. We'll allow you to do so at this time, to come forward to do that one at a time. You'll have 3 minutes to do so. There are lights up here on the podium. You'll see those. They're red, yellow, and green. When the red comes on, your time is up. So everybody has 3 minutes to speak. And we'll ask that the first person who is here would like to come forward. We'll let you to do so at this time. Give us your name and your address. Good evening.
Yes, my name is Jerry Richard, and I live at 2718 Elon Road. The property they're talking about is approximately four houses down, or 4 lots down. But as you stated before, they haven't did no traffic surveys. I sit out there in front of my house and watch 60 vehicles pass my house in 2 hours. They use that as a cut-through. The lights on the street is dim, can't see at night, no lines in the street at all. Right across from my property, you can see where the tanker trucks, tractor trailers, semis come up and down. Oh, right, no problem. Tanker trucks, gas trucks, semis, they come up and down Elon Road, tearing up the street itself. Right across from my street, right across from my driveway, you can see where the blacktop is breaking off. I watch cars go down in the ditch. I watch them knock my mailbox off numerous of times, so I don't think we need any more traffic up there on Elon Road. My neighbors don't want it, because I discuss it with them, and I definitely don't want it because I have kids, grandkids, that come visit me, and they play with the kids across on the city side. So when they crossing that road, people flying up and down the road 40 to 60 miles an hour. And no one here will want that on their street or for their kids or grandkids. And I feel that a development, if that rezoning affect my property, I don't want it. I do not want it there on my property to rezone my property from residential, because 9 times out of 10 it take property value down because it's not residential. And no one want to move into an industrial area. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next. Anyone else? Last call. If not, we're closing the public comment period for this one. Commissioners? Comments, questions, discussion, or motion?
I don't know how to ask this, Mr. Chairman, but Mike has brought up a question about a cemetery there. Is there any evidence that a cemetery is there, Mike?
I asked Dr. Lodel that from the Archives Department. He said he was not granted access to the property. He thinks the marker might be farther to the south at this southern edge of the Halliburton Cemetery that's shown on this map. But when I saw that topo that matched this outline, that was like a uh-oh kind of moment to me.
I don't know what to do. What do you do right now, Doug?
Well, regarding the cemetery, I mean, I think if this, I mean, regardless of what happens on this property, if it's rezoned, if it's not rezoned, if there's any development or anything on this property, our recommendation, and quite frankly, we're going to require some sort of investigation be done to figure out just, is there cemetery limits on this property? Now, like Mike had pointed out a little earlier, there's been some earthwork already been going on this property that was not permitted. So we really couldn't tell if they came across something or not. So obviously, you know, like I said, regardless of what the zoning is on the property and what ends up being on the property, we run into this before with single-family homes, where if we think there's some kind of a cemetery or something on there, they need to do some sort of surveys or something just to make sure that they're not disturbing that. So that's going to be a requirement regardless of what comes on this property.
And it might mean nothing, but I just, you know, when I saw that, I was like, hey.
How large is that area in question?
Just on the subject property or in total?
on the subject property.
Okay. A little over 4 acres, just on the subject property. And this is the archive cemetery map, and you can barely make out the gray cross symbol. Here's a green one for a known cemetery here. This is the property here. So it says verification needed to be updated or confirmed. So they're not sure.
So the cemetery may be on the adjacent property and not on the property?
It might be, but we don't know. But all the maps, the county map shows Holly Burton Cemetery. The city map likewise shows it. So,
If it's 4 acres, it's kind of like it's almost half the size of the.
yeah, the whole parcel is calculated at 9.76 acres, 9 3/4. So it's a good hunk of it. And then there's cell tower in the back.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Doug, did I understand you correctly that even if someone were to, if this stayed RM and someone wanted to build a house at the front part of that, we would still require some sort of study to
We would
determine-
want to make sure that they weren't going to be disturbing the limits of the cemetery. And if we thought that there was something in the area, they would at least have to demonstrate that they weren't disturbing that area, even if it was on their property. It's not that they can't do it. We just don't want them disturbing that area.
In my mind, the cemetery issue is separate from the rezoning of the property. It's like, as I look at this, is this an appropriate request for the rezoning of the property? In my opinion, based on the proximity to other commercial services around, this would be an appropriate use of the property. So I'm okay with rezoning it, as long as what I'm most concerned about is that, let's say there was a cemetery, we never did a land disturbance. They could have, I'm not saying that this is what happened, but they could have eliminated all evidence of a cemetery and no one's none the wiser. You transfer, you sell the property, a new buyer buys it, and now we're here with an application.
Right.
So I'm concerned about that, and I don't know that there's anything that we can do to fix that because it's already done.
Well, I'm also concerned about they might have damaged their septic soils that they were going to utilize.
But all of that would be addressed if we rezone this and then they come before it with a site plan. They're going to have to address all of those things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
With that in mind, including traffic, like I have major concerns, just like Mr. Richards did, about the traffic, knowing that we would see this as a site plan in the future. I think that it is an appropriate use of this property for the request, and so I will move that we approve this request.
I second that motion.
We have a motion, and it has been second. Further discussion?
If I could just, is that an appropriate motion?
Yes, I think it's fine.
I want to point out the plan, if it is a cemetery, which in all indications, county map, city map, it's marked as a cemetery, the concept plan presented not be appropriate.
Right, and I guess that's the beauty of it being conceptual, is the fact that they're not locked into that, so they would have to plan around that at that point. And that gets back also to what Mike was just talking about regarding the septic soils. If it turns out that they were going to be building a structure in an area where their best septic soils are, they're going to have to change that around. But that's something that we'll have a pre-application meeting before the site plan. Site plan, something of this size, is going to come back to the Planning Commission. These are all things that we'll make sure that the applicant is aware of. Plus, they are here, so they're hearing this discussion, so they're fully aware of what we expect.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it is deemed to be a cemetery there, and they build around it or in front of it, whatever, would they have to provide access to the cemetery?
They'll have to provide some sort of a perpetual easement for access, yes, sir. There's nothing really in the code that states one way or another about how wide or what that has to be, but I believe the case law over the years have said that there has to be some sort of an easement granted. That way any descendants can come and visit the gravesite. So yes, they would have to provide some kind of an easement.
One thing you need to understand, I have served some time with the Historical Society. I don't think there's a Saturday that doesn't go by out here where we meet that someone's not coming by the fact that they have bought land in Rutherford County and did not realize there's a cemetery on it. And some of them have already started building houses. We had one to come in there not long ago, and they said, we have found, we think, 2 graves. Can you come and help us? We have some individuals there at the Historical Society are quite good at locating cemeteries. That's what they do. That's their hobby, locating these cemeteries, old cemeteries. They go to the people's house, and they said, where are you talking about? And they go there, they said, here? And they said, yeah, there's 2 here. They said, no, there's not. There's more than 2. They had already built all around, so they had to do a lot of different things to do with it. Rutherford County, you got to remember, Rutherford County started actually back in the 1700s. There are cemeteries here that nobody knows about, and we're finding them every day. So I think it's good to the fact that they're willing to go and see what they can do with this cemetery. So I think that's good there. And if there's any way, I think the Historical Society could help them in any way, I think they will be willing to do so. But it may take more than that to make the location there, working in that area. But they're out there. They're all over the place. And Mike, as soon as I saw that mound, I know where I come from. When we see a mound in a field that hasn't been farmed or worked, sometimes that's Native American. Because I grew up on, I said, the grandfathers and the fathers would say, don't touch that. And that's what you do. You farmed around it. And if you'll look at that one, you'll see the height of it compared to everything else around it. I'd have no doubt that probably is Native American of some sort. So that's what you have found there, I would think. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Jeff Phillips? Yes. Mike Cush?
Yes.
Lee Bogle? Yes. Charlotte P? Yes. Trey Gooch?
Yes.
Jim Thompson?
Yes.
Michael Shirley?
Yes.
Pettis Reed?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. Moving to item 2, Hollingshead Development, LLC, REZ 25009. Location, Hickory Grove Road. Commissioner is Michael Rather. Size of the site is approximately 4.7 acres. Tax map 12. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is light industrial. Mr. DeMasi.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, the applicant is proposing to zone this property from its present RM to light industrial. According to the application submitted, the intent of the property is used for parking and a storage facility for building materials. This area already has industrial businesses being conducted and construction materials being produced in close proximity to the site. You'll notice that there is a concept plan that was included with your agenda packets. The plan shows a 4,000 square foot building along with concrete parking and maneuvering areas. The applicant has also indicated there would be some exterior storage of material and vehicles, although a concept plan doesn't really show that, exactly where that would be. This is not a planned development, again, consistent with the discussion we had during our last application. So what they're showing you isn't set in stone necessarily, but it does give you an idea of how they would like to proceed. Further conversations with the applicant indicated that there would probably be, as far as trucks and things like pickup trucks and vehicles of that nature, is what they would be storing on the property, and different equipment going along with their construction activity. This property will continue to have access to Hickory Grove Road. You can see it's shown on the western edge of the property. We would want to see some sort of a sightline study. That looks like it's getting kind of close to the curve there in the road. Not sure what kind of sight distance that might be right through there. However, they're having to kind of work around, since they're adjacent to I-840. You have to be careful with that too, that way they're not getting into any kind of state issues there with I-840. So just something to be aware of for that. Of course, they would have to submit an engineered site plan that would have to demonstrate all conformances to all of our regulations. That would be the same with landscaping. This is, since they're asking for a light industrial zone, they are required to have a higher buffer, the type 3 buffer, adjacent to any residentially zoned properties. Again, an engineered site plan would have to include a landscape plan as well as our performance standards would also have to be met for that. There are some folks here representing this application, and we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Commissioners, questions for staff?
They said they were using it for storage and trucks. Why light industrial just for storage?
That's what they asked for. I mean, it could be commercial general, I suppose. We could probably do something like that. I think a lot of it was just because of the amount of outdoor storage that they might be having. Having a building there, I mean, I think either of those two zones would be appropriate.
Anyone else? If not, I'll ask that the applicant come forward at this time.
Chris McGuire with Huddleston Steel Engineering, 2115 Northwest Broad Street, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Our client is requesting a light industrial zoning in the current RM property. It is bounded to the north by the core property, bounded to the east by I-840, and to the south is the current Hickory Grove Road. The area is developing industrial. There's 2 quarries on this road currently, and the property is in the urban growth boundary of the town of Smyrna, with the future land use of a light industrial and commercial use. And we're happy to review site distance and work with planning and engineering to make sure that we get everybody taken care of as far as site distance.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the anticipated loads, like the weight of the trucks that will be coming in and out of here?
Yeah, it's mostly plumbing supplies. So I mean, we're talking about at worst box trucks, I believe, and I think mainly it'll be for their home building division to come pick up pipes for the next project.
Thank you.
So is the building already there?
The physical structure has gone vertical, but we are working on getting the zoning and correcting it with the site plan.
Okay, did we get a building permit for this?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
Wow.
Sorry, Building Codes is aware of this. This is why they're here tonight, to get this rezoned. We can't issue a building permit until it's properly zoned.
So are you currently using it for building plumbing supplies and trucks are already going in and out?
No, I believe planning and building codes have put a stop to the work on site. So we are attempting to remedy the solution, get the correct zoning, come through with the site plan to make sure we meet all of the county's requirements and get it back up and running.
Other questions?
Chris, is that a residential home at the front of the property?
That's the adjoining property. Yeah, right there in the curve.
Yes.
That's the adjoining property.
Okay.
But it is, I believe it is a single-family residential home.
All right. Mike, go back to the photo that's on our pad that has the pink property lines.
It has pink property. Yes. Oh.
It's the topo with the trees and 840 on the east.
Hold on just a second. Let's see. That?
You can't go, well, that'll work. It looks like in this picture there is a home that's got a 3800 maybe address. Maybe that's what the address is. 3800 that is right next to the right of the driveway. Yeah, zoom in on that.
Okay. It's gremlins are working on me. Let me go to something else. It'll catch up just a second.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Just move your cursor over to the curve of the road. Now take your cursor straight up. That looks like a residential house.
It is.
Yeah, that's the adjacent property. That's not the subject site.
Okay, then yeah. I'm totally messed up here. What is the subject site?
This next door to the east.
It's the one that adjoins 840.
Ah, my bad. Okay, I totally apologize.
Well, the reason we're here is code shut this place down, I guess, to get the permits and all in order. Only question I got, just being in the background before, do we triple fee folks when they do this, or is there any kind of penalty when they come in and pull something like this?
Say again?
I'm just wondering, in Metro, you get triple fee if you pull something like this. They triple your fees for building permits and everything. I'm asking Tanya, do we have any kind of extra fees or?
Yes, in Rutherford County, we double the permit fee.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Does this building have an office bathroom and all that? I mean,
No, sir.
this bill, anything to add on that? It's not required to have an office, a bathroom or anything?
So far, what little conversations I've had with the owner, it is just a storage building. So if it's used strictly for storage and people are just going there to pick stuff up and drop stuff off, then restrooms are not permitted. If there was a staff member in there all day, there would be.
Is there power to this building today? Is there power? Have we got electric into the building?
I believe that they have provided service. I'm not sure if it's to the building or not. But I believe that they have been in contact with Middle Tennessee Electric.
Ms. Bell, would Middle Tennessee Electric bring power without a building permit? Or is that what triggered all of this?
No, that's not what triggered this, but Middle Tennessee, the electrical inspections are the only thing that Rutherford County Building Codes does not do. The state of Tennessee does those. They submit their final inspections directly to Middle Tennessee Electric. Sometimes we get copies of them and sometimes we can catch it like that, but most times they send them directly to Middle Tennessee Electric.
So it is possible that someone can get power connected to a building that was never permitted.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
Other questions?
This is a little upsetting. This is not an uneducated builder here. This is someone that knows the rules, knows they have to have permits, and they neglected to do so.
And what's going to be done with this big yard here? What's the plan for that? That wasn't shown on the plan. Not a stitch of erosion control measures anywhere. I'm sure we don't have a land disturbance on this one either.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We'll go ahead and open it for comment, public comment. If there's anyone here to have comment on this piece of property, we'll ask that you come forward at this time. You'll have 3 minutes to make your comments one way or the other. So we ask that you come forward at this time. Seeing no one, comments are closed. Commissioners.
How old are those pictures, Mike?
The date on this is, January, March 2025. So just a month old or two old. But they're planning something big here. They're flattening out this whole area. So
Mike, I don't want to belittle or have further discussion about what's going on right now. The application is to rezone this light industrial, and this is like they've been doing a lot of work there. Have an opportunity to challenge some of that stuff at site plan.
They'll have to submit a site plan for something. They would have to submit a site plan for something like this, even in the event that we were talking about, they hadn't started construction yet. Yes, I mean, to answer your question, we'll have to see a site plan for this.
All of the work that they've done have an opportunity to challenge what they've done. Appropriate for them to have already done?
I believe the short answer is yes to that question. They'll have to show, exactly, we'll have to have a more detailed plan showing exactly where parking areas are going to be, where storage material areas are going to be, how those are going to be screened, what's going to be paved, what's not. There's going to have to be more paving than what's currently being shown. It looks like there's in this concept plan showed it too, there's a pad around the building, but there's going to have to be, a little bit more, some thought put into the access drive, those kind of things. So to answer your question, yes, we'll have another crack at that.
Staff's recommendation is
that I would agree with that. Yes, sir.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? We have a second. Further discussion?
What are we doing here for a vote? What's the motion?
Motion to go ahead with approval for light industrial.
motion was to approve the rezoning.
With staff comments.
So if we approve it for this use, then they bring back site plan and all that. Is that where we go after that?
Correct. Now, we're not, with light industrial, I mean, it's not a planned development. So, I mean, if they were to do something different, as long as it was allowed under the code, they'd be allowed to do it. It's not specific for the use. But regardless, they'll have to bring a site plan back. That's correct.
I hats off to the codes department, whoever found this, and I'd agree. We just cannot have this kind of stuff taking shape. This is really backwards here, so got to fix it. Got a great company, builder, whatever, that's got itself in this situation. I don't know of any other way to fix it than this route.
Doug, let me kind of back up a little bit. Light industrial, in staff's mind, is appropriate for this piece of property, considering zoning around this piece of property?
Well, zonings and uses. Some of those, like Mr. McGuire had stated a little earlier, and we've kind of made, kind of alluded to this in the staff report as well, that when you go a little further down the road, Hickory Grove Road, now you'll see it zoned residentially primarily. However, there's some quarries that have been there. One of them, especially the one on the south side, that's been there for probably 40 years or so. I'd probably be more concerned about this if it were on the opposite side of 840, because you really don't see much of any commercial or non-residential development, I should say, on the other side of 840 as you're going down the road. But I think right there against 840, I mean, if you're going to zone anything in this area, that's probably the track to do it on.
Thought I remembered earlier that light industrial is appropriate for this. When Ms. P was talking earlier about light industrial, I said it could be, I mean, we've seen some outdoor storage type activities before in commercial general. That would allow for what he's doing currently, but then also maybe wouldn't allow for some of the more heavier industrial type uses, light industrial type uses. Staff have a preference? Do you have a?
I think we can go either way with it. Commercial general would be kind of a step down as opposed to a step up. So I think you're okay to recommend that direction. Now, if they came in with, say, one of the commercial zones but wanted to go industrially at that point, I think that's a little more, we'd have to have more discussion about that. I wouldn't think that'd be appropriate, but going down, I think would be all right.
Mr. Chairman, much to my family's chagrin sometimes, I research a lot of these in preparation for these meetings, and I thought that tonight that this one would be the fastest one approved. I looked at all the maps and clicked on the property assessors as you head down Hickory Grove Road. That this company owns most of the land on both sides of the street as you head to Jefferson Pike, and to find this map right here, or this picture, was shocking to me because I didn't come across this one. I'm going to start using this website instead. It's the appropriate. I think it's an appropriate zoning. I'm extremely disappointed that we're this far along in land disturbance and the building. But like Mr. Thompson said, I am going to vote yes for this when it comes time for the vote. But I wanted to go on record as just agreeing with Mr. Thompson. This was backwards, and this shouldn't happen. These people know better than that. And but again, kind of like I said with the last one, it's the appropriate zoning, and at least this way we're going to get it fixed. But it doesn't give it gives me great pause to think that they're not going to maybe try to sneak in a bathroom out there and then do that kind of stuff too, because we're already this far along without permits. But so I just hope that when codes goes out there that did they put in some pipes under the concrete and cap it and make it pass inspections? They're going to pull that out and put a bathroom in there later and things like that. So that's my comments.
So we will check it thoroughly. It was actually one of our building inspectors that found this. He drove by there, and it's a rural part of the county. It's not a part of the county that they go by very often. And so he's seen it go up, and we addressed it immediately, stopped construction there and then sent them before you guys. We have not yet been inside the building, and we have not seen any plans, but it will be something we'll look at.
Yes, sir.
And I do not intend to support it nor approve it, because if they own other properties in that area and we're willing to do this, then I'm not going to support this one. It can come back as a PUD or something that we can nail down the details and get every single detail correct, and course correct this, but as it stands now, I'm not approving it.
What kind of buffer would you need between an industrial site and residential?
It'd be a type 3 buffer. It'd be our most intense buffer that we've got.
I don't think they got it left.
Any other comments? Madam Secretary, call the vote.
Jeff Phillips. Mike Cush.
No.
Lee Bogle. Charlotte P. Trey Gooch.
Yes.
Jim Thompson.
Yes.
Michael Shirley.
Yes.
Pettis Reed.
I'm going to vote yes, but I'm going to ask the codes be after them like a duck on a June bug.
Motion carries.
Motion has carried. Moving on to number 3. Matt Hamilton with Ragan Smith for John Schuetz, REZ 25011, location at 4610 Sulphur Springs Road. Commissioner is Michael Rather. Size of site is approximately 9.8 acres. Tax map is number 48. Existing zoning is residential medium density, RM. Proposed zoning is commercial services. Mr. DeMoss?
Yes, sir, thank you. As you stated, the applicant would like to zone this property to commercial services in order to construct a mini warehouse development. According to information provided by the applicant, the development will consist of about 302 units, both enclosed storage and outdoor storage units, with options for both covered and uncovered storage. This site will be fenced with gated access, surveillance, and on-site management. There is an existing house on the property that would be converted for office use. There is additional information. There was a letter, pretty detailed letter, that the applicant provided as part of this that has been included with your application materials on your iPad. There is a concept plan showing the proposed layout of this development. You'll see that the total proposed non-climate controlled buildings are about 46,750 square feet. These buildings are actually positioned closer to Sulphur Springs Road, with the boat and RV storage areas in the back of the property. Since this is not a planned development, again, we've discussed this. This is not a binding concept plan, but it does give you an idea of how they would like to move forward. Many warehouses are only allowed by special exception in the commercial services zone. The applicant is aware that if this property is rezoned, that they will need to also apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals for the special exception. And again, I'll point you to their letter. They do reference that in there as well. So long story short, approval of the zoning would not approve the use that they are proposing tonight. This property does have frontage along Sulphur Springs Road and Hickory Road. We did express some concerns about access onto Hickory Road. Their original concept plan did show an access drive. However, we might be more amenable to an emergency-only access type situation. The current concept plan in your agenda packets does only show the access to Sulphur Springs Road. Of course, assuming that this would be approved for the sake of argument, and if it went to the Board of Zoning Appeals and got approval for the use, they would have to come back with an engineered site plan, as they would with any kind of development that we talk about. Type 2 buffer is required between commercially and residentially zoned property. Many warehouses typically require a 65-foot setback for any kind of storage activities. There is a provision that does allow for the reduction of setbacks if the proposed buildings only have access on one side. In those situations, you can use the setback that's mandated in the code, so it's a lesser setback at that point, just the generic setback. The applicant can also use the backs of those buildings as part of the buffer if they do meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. Their concept plan does take advantage of those provisions. Again, we would verify that with a concept plan. There are other properties in this area that are zoned for non-residential purposes. You can see on the zoning map that it's immediately adjacent to the west. There is some commercially zoned property, same designation, commercial services. There's also you'll recall that there is a large industrial park development located across Sulphur Springs Road that was approved a couple of years ago, going on about 2.5, I'd say 3 years ago at this point. That was, again, it was approved by the Board of Commissioners back in August of 2022. There are several single-family homes in this area. However, this area right here around the interchange, we do feel is kind of an area in transition. You can see that on this side of the interchange. You can see that on the east side of the interchange with 840 as well. We do have traffic concerns with this. We did talk to the applicant and their design team about that. At this point, no traffic study has been performed for this. However, similar to some of the past applications we've talked about tonight, should we feel that one is appropriate for this, which we probably would, we would require that prior to them doing a site plan submittal. So we'd have our scoping meeting, they would do the traffic study, we have our third-party reviewer do the review, and then it'd be submitted for a site plan review at that point. So with that, there are members of the applicant's design team present, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Staff? Commissioners, questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman. Doug, you said you had traffic concerns. What are those concerns?
Well, basically the same type of concerns that we had with the industrial park located across the street. You know, the condition of Sulphur Springs Road, what kind of turning movements will be coming in and out of this particular facility, the interstate interchanges, those kind of things. I don't expect the same level of traffic for something like this as I would for the industrial park. But the fact of the matter is, if the industrial park goes in and then this happens as well, you know, we're going to want to see what type of improvements are going to be required along the frontage of this property to help facilitate access in and out.
Anyone else?
And we do have concerns about sinkholes and flooding in this area, so.
If not, we'll ask that the representative for this development come forward. I believe it's Mr. Smith, am I right?
Evening. Eric Parle with Ragan Smith, 1500 Medical Center Boulevard, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We agree with Doug's and staff's report and happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, have you met with the neighbors or talked to neighbors? Let them know what you plan?
The owner actually owns a neighboring property that's already a commercial use, and talking with staff, they've recommended that we reach out to the other neighbors, and we plan on doing that. Not yet, no.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Smith? If not, thank you, sir. We'll now open the floor up for our public comments. Anyone here have any comments they wish to make concerning this property, either for or against? We'll ask that you come forward at this time. You'll have 3 minutes to make your statement. Just give us your name and address. Good evening. You might want to pull that mic down a little bit so it's closer to you. Don't worry about it, it just makes a lot of noise.
My name is Pat Ramsey. I live at 4719 Hickory Lane, Murfreesboro, which is, Hickory Lane is the street. We have 14 homes in there that try to get out that Sulphur Springs Road sometimes. We were not in favor of the other zoning around there, but it passed. Nothing's been done with it. That property is next to my son's house. The very end of it is on my house property. There is a huge sinkhole. And when it rains, my yard starts going downhill towards that sinkhole. That property has 2 large sinkholes. We're objecting to anything other than residential in there. I mean, we're family, we're homes. We know that progress has to happen. But I believe that the owners of that's next door, they were supposed to put in units, storage units on that property. And it ended up that it's not storage units. It's a plumbing business and some other buildings in the back. Now, I don't know how that happened, but that's what I remember. Anyway, I'm just asking you, please. I know progress has to happen. And just take into consideration the families trying to go in and out of there. And it's touching 2 different homes on there, plus all the homes across the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, we'll close the comment period. Commissioners?
To ask, Mr. Chairman, Doug, might the roadway improvements associated with the storage, not this storage, but the warehousing, do they stop at Hickory, or did they go west?
They were going to make some improvements right there at their entrance as they were coming into the property, like some, I believe it was a left turn improvement going, I guess that would be westbound, going into the property. And Mike, forgive me, I believe it was a right, were they doing a right turn lane coming in as well from the eastbound?
I don't think so.
Sorry, I forgot to turn the thing off.
No, I don't believe they were
Okay,
doing
it was just
a
a
right.
left, okay.
I think they were just doing a left
Yeah,
in the
and
property and then forcing all the trucks
That's
to
right.
go back
Yeah, I was
out.
going to say, I remember that they did some improvements to that to the extent possible, like Mike said, force any 18-wheeler traffic go back toward 840.
And they had planned to align their entrance and exit with Hickory Lane. Does that sound about right, or is that too far down?
No, they are
fairly,
yes, their entrance
With
will
the
be
turn lanes
aligned.
and associated
Yes.
work, but as far as west of that intersection, it was going back.
I think it was just there wasn't a whole lot past that. So that's one of the reasons why we were saying, well, if there's going to be something here, if this were to be approved, we would say, look, we need to see some sort of a traffic study or something to see what kind of improvements would be necessary to help facilitate access into and out of the facility.
I fail to remember the width of the existing roadway through there, but it does narrow down significantly west of that intersection, doesn't it? West of Hickory.
Yeah. And then one of the reasons we wanted all the trucks to go towards 840 was the bridge at Nice's Mill. I think it's got load limits on it. I don't believe it's supposed to support fully loaded truck traffic.
I do remember that because there was signage associated with it. Okay, so this development with storage, I know there's others in here with more experience, but we're looking at boats, RVs, various pieces of equipment that could be stored there, trailers, other things.
Right.
That I'm just concerned about the roadway width and condition, and to be able to. The HVAC is another business, but the tying businesses together and then putting storage in, I'm just concerned about the roadway itself and infrastructure to support that. To make sure.
Right, and yeah, I mean, I share your concerns with that, which especially with the trailers coming in, making sure the site is designed in such a way that, if a trailer's trying to go, or a larger vehicle is trying to go in and, they're not, sticking out into the right of way or something like that. There's a way for them to turn around to get back out. Those are the kind of things we look at. Plus the fact that, if there is somebody trying to turn, are they blocking the traffic? If there's a turn lane or something there, might facilitate access in and coming back out again. So.
And I also knew there was a lot of drainage discussion for this area.
Right.
Not just the sinkholes on this property that have been stated, but the ones
Exactly.
on the warehousing property and the storage requirements there, and it all goes toward that bridge.
It all goes toward the river. And the staff report, I mean, Mike's right. I mean, this is a drainage sensitive area, and we know that there's a lot of issues out here. We even make mention of that into the staff report, that yes, we're aware that there are drainage concerns out in this area.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mike, how does that drainage, the thing that I see the biggest problems there, it looked like there was two two big sinkholes right in the middle of those parking areas on both the front one and the back one.
Right, there's one large one here, and then two in this back parcel here.
So I know that they're responsible for capturing rainwater that falls on this project and retaining it, but what is their responsibility for the neighboring properties being able, like, we all can look at this topo map and see that their properties drain onto this one. Do they have to continue to accept that water?
Yes, right. We will make them evaluate the pre-development conditions, what's coming to this area, and post-development, what happens when they, pave over a big portion of this. And we don't want the neighboring properties to be impacted.
Right. I mean, once you pave it over, you can't just dig it back up and...
No.
Yeah, so you get one shot at it.
So again, the site plan that we were presented is not realistic.
It's conceptual, correct. I mean, that's a way that they would like to develop the property. Of course, if the site constraints prove to be too much, if this were to be approved, then they would have to make some allowances for some of those constraints. To answer your question, yeah, that's why it's conceptual, I guess.
Looking at this, if you look on the other side of the interstate, you got a storage business in behind Dollar General store already there. That storage is fairly well full. You keep hearing me say that there's not enough storage in this county, and it's not. Still not enough storage. It's up to the developer to work around them sinkholes if we approve the zoning. I can tell you, for the benefit of the county and the tax revenue that this piece of property would bring, if they're able to make this happen, would be a wonderful thing for the ratepayers. I'm going to make a motion that we approve the rezoning for this based on staff comments.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Further discussion?
Doug, did you say a traffic study has not been appropriated yet?
Correct.
But we anticipate one, or we can request one?
I think we can, yes, sir, we can request one, and I think we would on this, just considering the other developments in this area, especially that larger, industrial park we talked about to the south.
Okay. And refresh my memory, do we have the ability to have any developer improve, in this case Sulphur Springs, at least on the frontage property?
I believe, yes, sir, I believe we do. I mean, that's part of what the traffic study is going to determine as to what improvements need to be made. But just outside of that, this area is identified on our long-range transportation plan as a 5-lane road at some point in the future. So at the very least, we'd want to see some right-of-way dedication and different things like that. I believe they might be showing that, actually. Looking at that plan, I believe that's what they're showing there, is a little bit of dedication there.
Okay.
Right along the frontage. So, I mean, to answer your question, along the frontage, yes, I do believe that we have the ability to require some improvements along the frontage at the very least. Now, not make it a 5-lane road necessarily,
no,
but, at least improve it for the use to, if it's approved for what they are intending it to be used for.
Okay, thank you.
With that in mind, Doug, could you just add to staff comments to look at dedicating right-of-way along Hickory Lane as well, just in case down the road we need to make improvements that right-of-way is already dedicated?
Right. Well, that'll be something to look at during site plan review. We can't condition it because this is not a planned development, but yes, we would look at that anyway. But,
okay,
but
gotcha.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. I think that would help that potentially could help the neighbors in that area down the road. Thank you.
No more comments. Please call the roll.
Before we call the roll, maybe one more quick question. The concept plan shows a lot of units storage units covering up some of those sinkholes. If they think that it doesn't make sense to put a storage unit in there, give me an example of some other type of development that could go in there.
Yeah, and I'll say this for the benefit of the commission and also for those who might be watching and those in the audience. Commercial services is kind of the middle of the road zoning classification we have of the 3 commercial zones. It's not the least restrictive, but it's not the most restrictive either. It does allow for a large number of different uses, retail uses, pretty much any kind of retail use could be there. You could have auto repair, you could not have auto sales, but you could have auto repair, various other, like I said, retail uses. There's a fairly detailed list as far as what could be there that wouldn't have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals like mini storage would. So, you know, like right next door, those are commercial service uses. Right next door, you could see something like that. That would be there, like a Dollar General could be there. That's what that's zoned on the other side of 840 on Sulphur Springs Road. Could be something like that. Could be a gas station, convenience market. Could be a lot of different things.
So if the applicant changes their mind in lieu of a storage unit, they wanted to do something else, that's still our shot at that process at your site.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that part of it doesn't change any. The traffic study requirements, that if we felt one was necessary, the site plan coming back before the Planning Commission, yeah, none of that changes.
Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Jeff Phillips.
Yes.
Mike Cush. Lee Bogle. Charlotte P. Trey Gooch.
Yes.
Jim Thompson.
Yes.
Michael Shirley.
Yes.
Pettis Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion does carry. Moving now to item 4 was pulled. We're in item 5. Rob Molchan with SEC Incorporated for Ayoku Properties, LLC, REZ 24019. Location is 7052 West Gum Road. Commissioner is Jonathan Beverly. Size of site is approximately 53 acres. Tax map 150. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is a planned unit development. Mr. DeBasi.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This item was originally brought before the Planning Commission back in July of last year. It was deferred so the applicant could coordinate traffic improvements to West Gum Road and Manchester Pike with the owners of a different application considered on that same night. Mike's got the map up there. The other property we were discussing was that property right to the north, on the north side of West Gum Road. That was another Swanson development. They were proposing a residential development. There was a planned development along with some commercial along the frontage. You'll recall that there was a lot of discussion on that application regarding road improvements to West Gum as well as the intersection at West Gum and Manchester Pike. That was deferred. This item was also deferred for the two applicants to try to see if they could work out some sort of an arrangement as far as sharing the costs and whatnot for those improvements. Never were really able to come to any kind of an agreement, and since that time, the applicant, the Swansons, to that property to the north, they've kind of put that one on the back burner. So the Ayoku folks have decided they wanted to start moving forward without that, and we did ask them to do their own traffic study on that. We'll get to that here in just a moment. But by way of review, we have discussed several different proposals for this particular property, or properties, I should say, on the west side of West Gum Road over the years. Not so much that have come before the Planning Commission, but just staff discussions and things. So this property, along with other properties, like I said, have been purchased by the applicant for the Ayoku Healing Retreat Center. There is a pattern book, a revised pattern book that has been included with your agenda packets. From their pattern book, this is a direct quote from what they submitted. This is going to serve as a safe space for mission-aligned community leaders to heal, embrace their self-worth, and foster a profound reclamation of their humanity because they deserve to feel honored, cared for, and reminded of life's joys. The retreat center will house a variety of activities, including a renovated conference center that can hold up to 250 people. They did say their typical events are anywhere between 50 to 100. a yoga studio, spa, bathhouse. The plan also proposes a bungalow village housing approximately up to 96 guests. Again, typical numbers between 30 to 50. There would be a variety of recreational facilities such as pickleball courts, basketball, hiking trails, etc. There would be community events on the property from time to time, but this facility is meant to be private and would not allow for general and or public use. You'll see the concept plan in your agenda packets as part of the pattern book. Mike's got it up here as well on the big screens. I would just say to look at the pattern book for additional information. I will say that there is, in addition to the conference facilities and overnight accommodation, there would be 2 permanent houses on the property, one for a property manager and then one for an executive house. Access to the property is, of course, along West Gum Road, as shown on a concept plan. We did require a traffic study for this. Our traffic consultant has reviewed that. The recommendations of that study have been listed in the pattern book on pages 22 and 23, mostly regarding the intersection there at Manchester Pike and West Gum Road, but we can get into that here during the question period as well. The concept plan will also show the internal road network, parking areas, you'll see all that. Of course, if this is to be approved, an engineered site plan would be required to be submitted to our office, consistent with all the developments that we see. Non-residential plan developments do not require open space set-asides. However, although the primary use of this facility is non-residential, they are showing a large amount of open space being maintained for this project, about 26 acres or about 50% of the site. Of course, as I stated before, engineered site plan would be required. It would be required to meet our performance standards as well. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Rob Molchan with SEC is present. I believe members of the applicant team are also present to answer any questions. I'm sure Rob will probably have a brief presentation he wants to go through. But with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, questions for staff?
What page did you say the traffic?
I believe 22 and 23 for the traffic study. Yes, sir.
Doug, back when this thing was deferred earlier, the main, I think the main issue was the accessibility to the property and the condition of the road. Nothing has really changed, right?
They are showing more improvements at the intersection of Manchester Pike and West Gum. As far as access into the actual property itself, I don't believe there were really any recommendations that were made for access into the property, directly into the property. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's correct. Yeah. And Mike's got a, well, Mike, I'll tell you what, but you can go ahead and talk about that part of the.
Okay. So some of the recommendations that came out with our meeting with TDOT was a dedicated right turn lane heading south on Manchester Highway and turning into West Gum Road. And also they wanted to widen this to at least 14 feet coming in. And they did say 2 11-foot lanes coming out, but I don't know if that was agreed upon or not, but that was one of their recommendations. This is a paved shoulder right now, so we would require that they do geotechnical borings to evaluate the paving thickness to make sure it's enough to support turn lanes. If it is, they just have to stripe the turn lanes. If not, they'll have to rebuild that section to TDOT standards. From what the traffic study indicated, that this is a low-level traffic generator, and it is not at peak times, so that's why they're not making any improvements on Gum Road. Gum Road is a very narrow county road. It does have some sight distance limitations, and that's what we were hoping that the Swanson project was they were gonna team up with the Swanson project and resolve all these issues, but the Swanson project is on long-term hold, so it's out of the picture right now. So Gum Road in the area is only about 16 feet wide, It is very narrow, and like I said, there are some sight distance issues. Let me get there real quick.
Mike, did you say 16 feet
16,
wide?
like,
Thank you. I just
yeah,
wanted to make
your
sure
sweet
that
16 birthday, yes.
16, yep,
yes.
thank you.
Our typical is 20.
I was going to say the average width of a bus
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
After
They would
that-
swap paint if 2 buses passed. Yes.
Thank you.
And that's with no shoulders, correct, Mike?
Yes.
Correct.
So there is a small residential development just to north of the Ayoku project, and they had to put in some shoulders and ditch improvements and other things along Gum Road.
But
And
they just did it on their side of Gun.
just on their side, yes, sir. The Ayoku, I'm like Chairman Reed, I can't pronounce it, but they only have this limited, yeah, it's very, very, very narrow. So that's a quandary we're in. I mean, do they just improve their entrance? Or do you require more? Their traffic study indicated that with the low-level traffic generation, it wasn't an issue. But, you know, we have some concerns about the width of this road and the sight distance. I'll show you.
Yeah, can you show us the sight distance issues or the blind spots?
There's one right up here. It's generating.
And that's an elevation change
Yes,
issue.
it's a vertical curve.
Right.
And let me go to. The gremlins. I might have to reboot. Great. Love technology.
Mr. Chair, on page 9, it says typical one-day event will average up to 100 people. On a 16-foot road, I have a hard time believing that's would not generate enough traffic to improvements.
Right, and I think what Mike was saying is, I mean, that's being some of our concerns, but the fact that they've got such limited frontage, you know, how far can you reasonably say, hey, you have to improve the road? You know, we obviously can't have them rebuild all of West Gum so it's got adequate width and shoulders and everything, especially with such limited frontage. So we have to, that's what Mike was saying we're kind of in a quandary about.
So, and then also the project will be constructed over 3 phases. It won't be all at once. So one of the things that we agreed with the applicant and TDOT is that each phase, in between each phase, we'll have them reevaluate the traffic study and see, okay, we know how much impact the first phase is. This second phase, we can project X amount of additional traffic and what other improvements are needed. So that's kind of one of the things that we agreed upon. Let's see. But it was supposed to be off-peak hours, not like a subdivision when everybody's leaving for work early in the morning and coming home at the same time, or a business where it's you know, an industrial site or a commercial site where everybody starts the shift at the same time. It was what we've been told, it's a you know, a trickle of people coming in and out at different times. But I mean, you're right, with 100-something people, yeah, that's a lot of people possibly leaving the site at one time.
When I pull this site up on my map here, it's showing a wedding event or manor there. Is there something being used there? At this
Well, there,
address?
at one time, there was. Now, I don't think that was another one of those venues that kind of snuck under the radar and had been there for a while. I don't think currently it's really being used for much of anything, so. And Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
multiple years, evaluating our comprehensive plan to protect rural areas, especially when infrastructure is involved, and are committed to, in essence, larger lot size to protect those rural environments. How does this fit into our long-term?
Well, currently, it's located in the suburban belt character area, so it's not in the general urban area, but it's not in the rural area. Under our proposal, which of course we haven't voted on, but under Plan Rutherford, I have to pull the map up to see, but under Plan Rutherford, it's not within the urban growth boundary. So this area is outside of the urban growth boundary, so it would probably be in that rural living area, which is kind of that middle area between the urban growth boundary and the more rural preserve, is what we're identifying with the Plan Rutherford. Now, like I said, we're not, that's just what that is right now. You know, that hasn't been adopted yet or anything. But currently, it's in the suburban belt character area, which does anticipate non-residential uses. But it's like we talk about with a lot of projects that we look at. There's timing elements involved when it comes to looking at any kind of development. Just because an area, and we talked about this in our last meeting, as you recall, just because there's an area identified in one of the development nodes doesn't mean that every single property is going to be zoned that way. Doesn't even mean it's going to be zoned once we get an application in for it. You know, there's other factors at play here, you know, infrastructure, specifically roads, you know, utilities, those kind of things. So there is a timing element involved when we look at these.
Other questions? If not, we'll ask that a representative come forward.
Good evening, Rob Molchan, SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard. Thank you all for offering this up tonight. I do agree with most of the comments Doug had to say in regards to this project. You all did see this back in July. I know a few of you may not have been here at that point in time, but this is the Ayoku Healing Retreat Center. This is a facility that is for self-care rejuvenation of individuals that are in our communities that are out there across the country on that side. This is a place where you come to in regards to looking at a diverse range of programming activities to help with these individuals who are coming here that are part of our society, that are trying to make our society better on that side of things. So there'll be conferences, there'll be seminars, there'll be community development and cultural programs that'll be happening at this facility. Some of the things we'll be offering with the programs of this will be such things as massage therapy, nutrition training, also stuff in regards to healing through grief work. So it's a very diverse program that they're offering up this facility on that side. So this is a very low-key facility on that side. So as you said, we've got 96 bungalow spaces on this to be utilized for overnights. So you could come into this facility and be here for a day. It can be for a number of days. It just depends on the style of treatment that you're asking to be used at this facility on that side. So it is very diverse across the board. This is a very large piece of property. As you can see in the concept plan, it is very spacious. There is very little activity in regards to buildings and parking mass and such like that. So we are leaving a lot of green space with this property. So it is very low density if you want to think about it from the standpoint of a residential side of things. So we're leaving a lot of green space because we want this to be a very tranquil space. We want this to be a place where you come to have a chance to recharge when it comes to those individuals that are coming to this in regards to their community focus with trying to help individuals in the community across the country on that side. So that's kind of where it's at. As Doug stated, we did start with going back since July, was kind of working with Swanson and trying to come to some kind of agreement in regards to trying to work on what they had planned for their development in regards to realignment of GUM back to Manchester on that side, and we all just could not quite get to a point on that side, and the Swansons have decided to move that to the back burner, as Doug said. This will be something that they'll come back at some point in time. But Ayoku wants to move forward, and that's why we're here tonight on that side. We did do the traffic study, as Doug and Mike talked about on that side. So as it's outlined on page 22 and 23, this with being a 3-phase process, we did agree with TDOT and staff to look at this, redo the traffic study after every phase. So initially, the first phase of this development will be the right-hand turn lane on the southbound lane of Manchester Highway. As Mike talked about, there is a very large amount of extra pavement on that shoulder for us to expand upon. We did discuss this with TDOT, that we will go through and do the coring samples to find out if that thickness of that pavement can handle TDOT standards on that side. If not, we'll be back to fix it or make it correctly so that it does function under TDOT standards for that turn lane to allow us to make the right-hand turn on the West Gum. So those are some outlines on that side. And again, we'll come back to looking at each one of those, because again, with this being a non-typical type of development that you don't really know what the traffic generation patterns are. That's why we facilitated with looking at this traffic study again 2 more times after the first phase is in operation, so we can evaluate how much traffic is being generated with the first phase and then look at the programming, what's in the next phase, and kind of extrapolate as what we would feel is the amount of traffic coming through for the next couple of phases afterwards. So, but I'm available for any questions now or after the public hearing.
Question, the actual developers, the people who will own this property, do they have any similar developments anywhere else in the South or the United States? Is this their first attempt, or do they have other developments like this?
This would be their first facility in regards to this being a, instead of thinking like a small basis of like a small office building or something like that, this is their first like retreat style where they want to really expand the program that they've been offering with their services in other places at this point in time. They want to take and have this opportunity of buying this property and actually opening this up to a very tranquil setting instead of it being something of a medical office type of building on that side. But no, this would be the first of this kind of facility for them.
Rob, can you describe the phases? Because I didn't see anything about what was involved in each phase.
Yeah, Mike, I think it's the next slide down or 2 slides down. So the blue areas that you see up there would be phase 1. So you're really looking at, in regards to this, would be, of course, the entrance coming in off of West Gum, coming back in. You would then come past what would be called the property manager's house. So we'll have, there'll always be somebody there, but this will be the property manager's house. So the person that would be more or less the caretaker, manager of the day-to-day operations in regards to the property on that side would live in that first facility there. And then coming back in, there's an existing lake. I'm looking at doing a non-denominational sanctuary or chapel right there on the lake, so a really picturesque kind of space on that side. And then coming into the main part of this, you've got in phase 1, you're looking at really the wellness complex and the welcoming center. So that's really the first part of this, plus also the first pod of the bungalows on that side. So you're looking at nine buildings on that side, and of course the septic/step system that we got in the upper corner up there on that side. So that'd be phase 1, is pretty much the introduction to the program on that side. Phase 2 would be the burnt orange color, if you want to call it that, on that side. So you're looking at, again, bringing in and putting in multiplex courts, so that'd be pickleball, that kind of stuff, that we can utilize that space for some outdoor recreational facilities for the guests that are here at that point in time. Again, bringing on bungalows court 2 on that side, plus also some additional parking. And then eventually phase 3 would be the yellow corner over here, which would really be 2 more of the bungalow courts, and then really getting into some more of the outdoor walking and recreational type spaces and outdoor therapy type of spaces on that side. So that's kind of the progression of the project.
Do you anticipate doing the site work for phase 2 and 3 with phase 1, or are you going to reserve that to make sure that it matches what they're wanting to do?
Yeah, no, phase 1 would just be simply what's in blue being constructed. There may be some mass grading or something like that that may have to happen in regards to moving some dirt, so we have cut fill balances and such like that. But in regards to actually constructing this, and this is part of the agreement in regards to the traffic study stuff, is that we would only build what's in that phase. And then once that's online and starts moving, and when phase 2 comes on, then we would have to go back and redo the traffic study to understand what's the difference between traffic that was already counted today and then what happens with phase one coming online on that side? And then subsequently two, when phase two is done, and when they want to move on to phase three and bring in the extra 2 more sets of bungalow courts, we would do the exact same thing over again to understand how much difference in traffic generation was generated coming through those intersections we've studied, to understand what that count would be, and then extrapolate again, adding in another set of bungalows on that side. So,
Doug, since this is a PUD, if they do phase one and then decide that they want to change phase 2 and 3 from what we see here, they would have to come back before the Planning Commission, is that correct?
We would probably look at that a little bit, just depending on, phasing can vary sometimes when it comes to these projects. Sometimes they think what's going to be phase one, maybe it's a little less, phase two maybe a little more. It just depends on the extent of what they're doing. If they're not really changing what they're going to be building, the phases aren't as critical from us, from our standpoint at least. Because if that were the case, some of these residential developments we've looked at, we would have to have brought them back several times for something like that.
It stays,
as long as it stays consistent with what they're looking at. If they wanted to say, let's say they wanted to switch the phase 2 bungalow pod for one of the ones in phase 3, we probably wouldn't. That probably wouldn't bother us so much. Now, if they wanted to start adding a bunch of bungalows where they weren't shown, that's a whole different story.
Or if they wanted to combine all the bungalows into a hotel, they would have to come
That's correct. Something like that would have to come back through.
Thank you.
Rob, so what happens with the conference center? It's already there. The building's already there, but it's shown in phase 2. How does it function with your plan?
that has to be renovated. It's actually one of the existing buildings that needs to be renovated on that side, so it's not really, it's not part of the program at this point in time on that side. So, I mean, the renovations would have to occur for us to be able to utilize that facility on that side, so.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question here to help me. Just, Mike, if you'd go back to that West Gum Road where you're showing going down, real rural.
If my computer will work.
Bigger than a cow path, but have we ever approved housing development on a road that looked like that, where you'd have 8 houses, maybe with 100 people staying in it?
Ask that last part again. I didn't quite catch what you heard, what you said.
Housing development on a road that he just had up there showing West Gum Road that's a little bit bigger than a cat, enough to get a hay wagon down, where you'd have 100 people living in it. I'd be concerned about fire engines getting in there and ambulances getting in there. I like the idea of having a restoration place for folks to go and heal, but it just does not seem that we're ready. That area is ready. It's not developed out to be able to handle what 100 people would require to handle. I'm just asking, have we ever approved enough for 100 residents to be living in a compound or staying in a compound with that type of access?
Personally, I don't recall approving anything like that now. I mean, I've been working here for almost 19 years. I'm not going to sit here and say that we've never done anything similar. Most of the retreats that we have approved, nothing's coming to my mind right now. I'm just going to, I'm just kind of drawing a blank right now. But I will say that this is a little unusual about the fact that it just has such limited frontage. Most of the ones that we have seen typically have more frontage than that. Of course, if this were to be some sort of a residential development, kind of like you're talking about, at that point, I think that would definitely change their traffic study as far as any proposed improvements to West Gum, especially accessing the property.
What I remember is, well, and it states in here that it's not generally not open to the public. So these are people, if I remember correctly, from all over the nation, sometimes all over the world, coming in to have a retreat here. My question is, how does this benefit Rutherford County, except more traffic on a road that is not sufficient to handle the traffic?
Well, I'll say from the standpoint of locally, in regards to what we're doing with this facility and the people that are doing this, that you're looking at this from the standpoint of this is helping folks that help others in our community, whether that's here in Rutherford County and Nashville on that side, which would be a majority of the time would be people coming from localized areas on that side. Yes, we would be looking to have people that would come from anywhere across the country and potentially across the world as well. So, I mean, this is a place where we're trying to help people that are trying to help people in our community that need the help. That's really the benefit of what we're trying to do with this facility on that side. It's really about trying to help people that help people with this facility on that side. And whether that be local or external, traffic will always be generated in either way on that side. I would tend to look at this facility from the standpoint of, if you think about going to a resort on an island or something like that, people come and go all day long, and that's kind of what this is. So if you're coming in for a treatment, you may come in the next day, depending if you are coming from out of state or flying in from somewhere. You may come in a day early on that side and come in, and so your treatment facility may be the next day out. So people are coming at odd times during the daytime on that side. But I do understand, yes, we are generating traffic on that side, yes.
I have a hard time thinking somebody's going to fly into Nashville on one day, do the 24 traffic, do the Murfreesboro traffic, Manchester traffic, that's a hard sell.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Michael, again, refresh the audience here. West Gum is 15 feet wide, shoulder to shoulder, or pavement to pavement. There is no shoulder, right? 16, so they're
16 feet, yes, sir.
So they're 8-foot lanes. Okay. With no shoulder, no, that's it.
No, sir.
If you get off the pavement, you're heading
You're in
towards
a
the
field.
ditch.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rob, on page 24 of the pattern book, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you like to have 24-foot lanes inside your property?
That's standard requirements for the county.
Okay. So is that a safety kind of a thing? Moving around easy, getting vehicles and trucks and emergency vehicles in and out okay?
And yes, that'd be the standard reason why you'd have a 24-foot.
Okay. So I also take a quick count of and this may not be accurate, but I kind of quickly counted your parking spots. Yeah, it's a bunch. And I could really care less about what your frontage is on Gum Road. I don't care if it's 10 feet wide or 1,000 feet wide. You're putting 200 plus parking places, 100 plus people that might be in for a private event, which will all come at one time and leave at one time, likely, if it's an event, onto a 16-foot wide, narrower than the roads inside your development. So unless, I don't know why your client and Swanson could not come to an agreement. Maybe you'd like to tell us why they could not agree on improvements, but I don't see any chance in the world you getting this approved without your client ponying up some dough for some real improvements on West Gum Road. This is a crazy ask. This is a dumb ask on your part and your client's part to consider pouring this amount of people and traffic onto a 16-foot wide, no shoulder county road. It makes no sense. 0 sense. So I can understand why Swanson pulled out of the deal, because it sounds like your client wanted them to pay the whole price for it. But this has no chance.
Rob, could you explain the conference center? You said it already exists?
It's an existing structure on the property today on that side. So what the plan is to renovate that to turn it into a actual real conference center, and that would be just part of the phase 2 of development on that side.
So there is a building there now, but it's not something that anyone recently.
No, it's existing building, yes.
Any more questions, Commissioners? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
We'll now open for comment period. Anyone who likes to either come forward, either speak for or against, we ask you to do so. You'll have 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
My name's John Harney. Our family lives at 6748 West Gum Road, and some part of our family has lived on Gum Road now for 75 years. First off, I'm certainly not opposed to this development. Looks like the things that they're trying to do would be very beneficial, whether it's people here or around the country. Our big concern is Gum Road and the substandard that it is and has been for years and years. We were tickled to death when Joe Swanson's plan came along that was going to significantly improve Gum Road, because almost daily when we go down Gum Road, because of the blind hill mainly, we have to creep when we get close to that hill, because if somebody's coming over the hill, a lot of times they're not expecting somebody coming from the other direction, and we have to put tires over in the grass. But and I got in my car this morning and taped the road, and maybe I got in the wrong place on the road, but I taped it, and it was about 15 and a half feet wide. You know, the parking places out here around the square are 9 feet wide. But all that being said, and I've got pictures here coming from either direction on Gum Road where the blind hill is. Again, we're not opposed to the development, but without improvements to Gum Road, our concern is there's going to be an accident that somebody gets hurt in. Mailboxes have been replaced up and down Gum Road for years. Now it widens when you get to the interstate approach bridge, but and something that hadn't been pointed out, and maybe it's being addressed with the traffic study, Gum Road comes in at an angle to Manchester Highway. You sort of have to look back over your shoulder toward the north. So if the improvements happen on Manchester Highway, if it could be aligned so it was a 90-degree to Manchester Highway, would be safer there. But our big concern is the substandard that Gum Road is now, and you've got people that may be coming from out of state or out of town that don't have a clue about the narrow width and that blind hill and a car coming from the other direction. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
While the next speaker's coming up, if we could make sure one of those, were those all just copies of the same thing, John? Those pictures, were they same thing? Okay, I just want to make sure one gets in the file. Okay, thank you.
We need your name and address.
Good evening, my name is Brandon Harvey, architect of record for this job. My client, Deferred Group, and the Ayoku Healing Retreat Center project. It's been a concept that, number one, I think is brilliant. This city has been a city of refuge for a while. It has very great character, and it's very desirable of a place for a retreat to be put. It will benefit the local community. It'll also show the surrounding regions why this type of establishment can exist and be beneficial. Without further going into why it's a retreat and wellness center, I feel like this project, has been something that's been set in motion that will bring a unique development to Rutherford County. The community will develop. The community will benefit from this development. I also feel like we have made reasonable accommodations for what's going to happen. On site, we have provided the amount of parking, all the considerations for vehicular traffic and foot traffic. and making sure that there's emergency egress. And again, this large site being very tranquil in nature is something that's going to be reserved. It's not going to be something that's disruptive to the community. And we can't express this without overlooking what planning ordinances and regulations and codes require. But the intentions may be to just bring people in on shuttles. In most cases, those coming in town are not going to have personally owned vehicles. They're going to be on shuttles and buses coming into the site, and they'll stick around for a few days and then they'll leave. So this concept has been done not by the Ayoku or the Mariah Group team, but it has been done across the country, and my client has visited these facilities before to kind of look at a proof of concept, and that's the reason why we're promoting this to flourish. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Someone else? Sir.
Jake Jacobs, 8114 Jacobs Road. I own the house at 7326 West Gum. I'm not against the development either. I've heard a lot of adjectives, but I really hadn't heard any words with substance on exactly what's going to be going on. As far as the buses and the shuttles, we farm all up and down West Gum Road. We can't even drive our tractors down there, so you're not getting a bus down there. I've built a couple of roads in Rutherford County, I think, and there's no way that this would get passed for anything else. We've built subdivisions all over Rutherford County and constructed roads thousands of feet down from where the subdivision started, and even on other roads make improvements. So I don't understand why they're getting a free pass not to fix the road that they're accessing back to the highway. We've never had the opportunity to do that before on anything else. I'm not sure why this is different. But it's not fair to the community out there that already has traffic problems to add something else to an existing road that's not the right size to start with.
Thank you. Anyone else? Don't see anyone else, so we're closing comment period. Commissioners?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The package is a pretty package. The green open space, the concept, the healing center, the meditation, the yoga, the tennis, I mean the whole bit. It's a class act. It looks really nice. I have no problem with that. My only problem is to put that amount of people at any given time, whether it's spread out during the day, whether it's a concentrated during event start time and end time, onto a road that is 16 feet wide, which is much narrower than the roads inside the complex themselves. So I'm going to make a motion to deny based on the fact that the infrastructure, the public infrastructure is not adequately suited at this time to support that development.
Add to that comment, infrastructure is not available. The long-term land use plan for that area, in my mind, in this planning commissioner's mind, is more suitable for a larger lot residential development, and this does not fit in that long-term vision that I have for that end of the county. So from that perspective, I'll second the motion to deny.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I'm going to vote in favor of the motion to deny as well. I think this concept plan is appropriate for this area. I did attend their neighborhood meetings. I appreciated them having those. The neighbors that touched this property were not strongly opposed once they learned more about it. They thought that it would be less impactful than some of the previous uses of this property as well. When I look at this application, in my zone for road board as is Gumpucket Road, which does have a similar large group, if you wanted to call it compound as well, with Rockhaven. And when they have festivals there, large amounts of people come, and people on Gumpucket can't get out. And so if two large vehicles pass, somebody has to make a long retreat. And I don't think that you can do that on Gum Road at this time. I think that if the applicant and the Swansons can restart their talks and make those improvements to widen Gum Road, I think I would probably be in favor of this development. But at this time, I'm going to vote in favor of the motion to deny.
One particular additional comment. Just the concept of a conference center with over 200 parking spaces does not coincide with the comments that were made on people being bussed in and bussed out. This particular concept in this rural area that's highly residential does not fit the long-term vision that we as a planning commission are trying to make work.
All right. No other comments. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Jeff Phillips.
No. I mean, yes.
Mike Cush.
Yes.
Mike Cush.
Yes.
Lee Bogle. Charlotte P. Trey Gooch.
Yes.
Jim Thompson.
Yes.
Michael Shirley.
Yes.
Pettis Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion to deny has carried. Moving to item 6, Swanson Development, LP, REZ 25005. Location is 4011 Manchester Pike. Commissioner is Jonathan Beverly. Size of the site is approximately 105 acres. Tax map 126. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning is a planned unit development, PUD. Industrial uses is 92.71 acres. Commercial general is 12.51 acres. Mr. Damasi?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This item will probably look familiar to the Planning Commission. This was originally considered back in March of this year. It was deferred at that meeting to, quote, look at hours of operation, the TDOT improvements to not have a negative impact on Manchester Pike, and design features to encourage that all traffic takes a route to the light, flooding, and his concerns with the industrial in the area, and to check with the city on their land use plan. That came right out of the minutes, and I have attached those minutes from that meeting in your agenda packets for your reference. Just as a way of just a quick overview, quick recap, if you will, of the proposal. They are looking to zone a majority of the property, 92 plus acres or so, to planned unit development, and you can see the map, the concept plan in the pattern book that Mike has up. Remaining 12.5 acres or so along Manchester Pike would be zoned to commercial general. Proposed development would allow for the creation of multiple warehouse distribution buildings to meet the needs of the local regional area, but also create commercial properties along the eastern frontage of Manchester Pike for future commercial, retail, and office sites. Concept plan can be found on page 7 of your pattern book. This shows about 644,000 plus square feet and 9 buildings. You can see the concept plan that Mike has up here on your on the big screens here. You'll notice, you'll recall that the previous concept plan had a pretty large building up against the northern end of the property. You can see they've broken that up into 3 smaller buildings, if you will. They've also added 2 smaller buildings closer toward the southern part of the site. Mike's kind of highlighting those right now to help offset the space that was lost when they changed the alignment of those buildings at the north end of the property. You'll see that in the pattern book, there's some discussion about this, but those buildings on the northern end, there was some discussion during the Planning Commission's meeting regarding the use of those buildings and the possible noise and things that could come about as a part of that. Those northern buildings, there's actually been some modification made to the pattern book, especially that northernmost building, which is building I. That's going to prohibit any uses that create any kind of banging, pounding, or disruptive noises such as automotive repairs, services as part of daily operations. That's actually a note that's actually in the pattern book. I take that directly from that. So those are some of the major changes that were made. Another change that was made, you'll remember there were some discussions about the truck traffic and being able to access the light. You'll recall that as part of the traffic study, they are proposing a traffic signal at the intersection there at Warmingfield Drive. You can see that Mike's highlighting that. There was some discussion regarding that northern access point, which is going to be a public road. You can see that they have taken some of those buildings and kind of pushed them off just a little bit, at least to the north. It looks like that one to the south is still a little close, but that is going to be a public road. But something that they did do, you'll see that crosstalk area between buildings E and F. You'll see that there is no longer a connection there to that northern access point for any truck traffic. So the only traffic that would be accessing that would be for private passenger vehicles for parking. You'll see that, as Mike's highlighting right there, the primary truck access point for any crosstalk area would be right there at, again, that intersection with Warmingfield Drive. We did make a request of the city to send us a copy of the approved pattern book for the property immediately to the east. We do have that, really just to kind of show you what was proposed as part of that development. Now, I am going to say this is a development that was approved probably close to 20 years ago at this point. I don't foresee the development happening exactly like it's being shown right here. That is what's approved. Nothing's really been done on this property, but what you can see, the property that we're considering tonight is adjacent to those areas B, E, and F, and then of course a portion of A. Now, the portion that directly abuts A right there, that's the step area for the proposed development. There's also B is high-density residential areas, E is more office-type development, and then F was going to be more commercial-type development. It's a fairly detailed pattern book. I didn't want to go into a whole ton of detail. We have it if we need to, but again, that just kind of gives you an idea of the surrounding area. Some other changes that have been discussed, you're probably not going to see this as much in the pattern book as of right now. The applicant's been looking for a potential alternative way to access the area for the existing step field, as opposed to trying to build some kind of an access across the wetlands and then Lee Spring branch right there. They're looking at possibility of purchasing, and Mike's highlighting it there, a piece of property onto Lavender Trail, where they would actually make that kind of a flag lot going into the back to the step field, which would give CUD the access to that, but not any kind of traffic that would access the rest of the development. That would strictly be for CUD's access point. They would have to redevelop that lot. They've already kind of exploring some options as possibly to build another house on the property and whatnot. So they're actively looking at that. It's not part of the pattern book. It's not part of the plan development zoning, but something I thought you'd want to be aware of. We've also pointed out, we've talked some about cemeteries today, that there is an existing cemetery on the back part of that property. They will have to provide some sort of perpetual access to that. That's something that they'll have to kind of work out as well. But with that, those are the primary changes that have been made. Matt Taylor is here to represent the development team. I'm sure he can go into a little bit more detail with some of the other things that I may have neglected to mention. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions, or Mike, if you had anything further beyond that. Okay, very good.
Commissioners, questions for staff? Mr. Shirley.
On building I, originally we were going to restrict access to that road between the building and the neighborhood for emergency vehicles only. That's been removed, is that correct?
Yeah, they're showing that as a drive all the way around, just for, it looks like private car parking, passenger parking, not for trucks or any kind of like roll-up doors or anything like that. They are still showing access back there, but it looks like it's not just for emergency access. So yes, sir, that is correct.
Matt, whenever you come up, just talk to me about that building and what that backside's going to look like. So.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll call the representative for the applicant. Come forward. Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Commissioners. Matt Taylor of SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard here in Murfreesboro. For building I, the back of that building would have potential to have some roll-up doors. Those G, H, and I are what we would probably describe as more like typical flex space. And so the front would be more retail storefront type, where you might have some offices, and then the back would be potential access. Some of those will have doors, some of them would not. If the roll-up doors being faced that way is troublesome to you, then we could probably flip that reverse that building. I don't know why we would be opposed to that. I think that we could easily move the parking to that other side and flip those roll-up doors to the internal part of the property. I don't think we mind which way that goes. So, but we tried to listen extremely well from our last meeting and address each of the concerns. You know, I, H, and G all are a maximum like 20 feet tall. We had 40 feet there before, and so much smaller buildings in height. They're much smaller in mass, and so they're not as intensive. We did, as Doug said, we eliminated the truck court connection to that northern public road, so we'll force those tractor trailers back toward the south to the signal. And then we limited the hours of operation on building I because it was the one that was closest to the neighbors.
Any questions for Mr. Taylor? If not, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll now open it for comment, either for or against. Anyone has anything to say, please come forward. You'll have 3 minutes. I don't see any mad rush coming forward at this time, so we'll close comments. Commissioners.
Tell you what, last time we had this up and it got deferred, I said the only thing I had concern about on this was maybe the location, and I remember there wasn't that many residents that showed up, and I made a comment. If they were really against this, they need to be here to speak up, and nobody's here tonight. I'm gonna make a motion, we approve this.
Have a motion to approve.
With staff comments, of course.
I will second that if you'll add to it that building I, that those roll-up doors would be not facing the residential area. And the reason that I'm concerned about that is just if those roll-up doors go up and those shop lights bleed out onto the residential, like if they're looking out their back porch and see the shop doors up, and if the applicant said that they weren't opposed to that, I think they addressed all the other concerns that we had with that change. I would second that motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a hard time with this where it is. You know, it's hard for residents to even know about these meetings many times. They came once, they don't know when it's coming back unless they really keep up. But if you look at this development, you're putting many large tractor trailer trucks with all these residents that are going on Manchester Pike. If you've been in that area at any time of day, you're adding, not a few, you're adding many large tractor trailer trucks on Manchester Pike to get to the interstate. You know, I know this is needed, but I think this is not the right placement for this. If they had access to Joby Jackson, if they had, again, they need to work with their neighbor and try to get access and not come out on Manchester Pike. I will not be voting to approve this.
I don't think I still have a second unless that change was being made. He's asking for a change to be made into the motion. Am I not right?
Correct. If we, were you agreeable to restricting those roll-up doors facing the neighborhood?
I guess I can amend my motion at this point in time to include that the roll-up doors be
Building
accepted,
I.
on Building I, yeah, would not face the residents behind it there.
You're agreeable to that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you'll second the motion then? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to state that I agree with what Commissioner P has been stating. I wish more residents had shown up, but I just can't get to around this being the right location with the trucks entering and exiting the highway the way that would be proposed. And so, therefore, I'm going to deny this one as well. So, thank you.
And just to address your concerns, I just want to make sure everybody's aware, we did follow the same protocol. Yeah, we followed the same protocol we did the first time, just so everybody's aware. You know, we still sent our notices out and put the signs out, so just so everybody's aware. Okay.
Right. It just doesn't, for me, the right location.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that got said.
And I still wish we could do more with the scenic corridor, because we talk about preserving those on 231, 41, and some of the other 70 and all of those. And I don't know what that looks like exactly. And I know that we do have commercial along this roadway, but I just can't this time seem to figure out exactly how we should manage that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this to me this needs to be on 840 or right on the interstate, not in the middle of residential. You know, with that number of trucks going in and out.
Okay. Secretary, please call the roll for the vote.
Jeff Phillips. Yes. Mike Cush. Yes. Lee Bogle. No. Charlotte P. No. Trey Gooch.
No.
Jim Thompson. Yes. Michael Shirley.
Yes.
Pettis Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Carries. Staff reports and other business.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just one quick item I just wanted to remind everybody about. You probably saw the email I sent out a week or so ago regarding the first public hearing for Plan Rutherford. That'll be on June 23rd. I'll be in this room here. That is a Monday night. That would normally be our Planning Commission morning meeting. However, that meeting is going to be moved to Tuesday just because of the fact that the County Commission has their budget meeting in here that morning. So we'll be kind of a little busy there for a couple days, but we'll have Plan Rutherford public hearing on Monday night and then our regular Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday the 24th in June. So just wanted to make that reminder.
6 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
Our next Planning Commission meeting will be May the 27th, which is a Tuesday. Remember that, because Monday is the Memorial Day. If there's no other business, we are adjourned.